This episode is sponsored by Launch. Are you an insurance agent that is tired of quoting business to try and find a better premium to win new deals? Are you looking for a way to differentiate and stand out from your competition? Well, look no further than Launch. Launch is an industry-leading software platform that gives you pre-built assessments that you can walk through with your prospect. Launch automatically calculates your prospect's risk score, and this allows you to show your prospect the areas you can fix to negotiate better premium and coverage with underwriters. Offer more value to your clients, turn missed sales into closed business, and most of all, become a better advisor to your clients. Visit getlaunch.io today to get more information on how you can use Launch to win more BORs starting right now. That's getlaunch.io to learn more.
All right, welcome to the Sales Process Series. We are really excited about this. And what this series is an interview with several different top producers in the insurance industry. These are folks that are absolutely killing it. They're over doubling their new business revenue over industry averages and doing it through a consistent sales process. And so we're having these conversations to pull out those themes that are really working for those individuals and really give them to you so that you can double your new business revenue. So enjoy the episode and look for more episodes in our Sales Process series. All right, Andrew, welcome back to Getting Past the Premium, one of our few second guests that have been have graced us on the show. So thanks for coming back.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well,
Andrew.
We got such raving reviews on the first episode. We knew we had to have you back for the Sales Process series. So remind everybody who you are and, who you're with, what you do, all that good stuff before we kind of jump into talking about your sales process.
Sure. Andrew Atkinson. I'm with INSURICA in the Phoenix office of INSURICA, and I started here in 2008. And I am a property and casualty producer. I start off pretty much 90% of my new business sales with workers' compensation as my lead line of coverage because it applies to all industries. So I'm a specialist in coverage more than I am in industry. And then once that gets going well, then we talk about all the other lines of coverage. And that's what I do for a living.
That's awesome. Well, and some unique, if people are watching on the videos, some unique marketing perspectives that you have. So if you haven't heard everything that Andrew does, go back and listen to his other episode. We can link to it or something, Alex. But today we're here to talk about your sales process in general, because we talked a lot about, we hit on some of that in the first episode, but wanted to dive deeper into what is that actual sales process that you take a client through, or a prospect, through from start to finish, to get them engaged and to bring them on as a client. So walk us through from a high level, lead to prospect to client. What does that sales process look like?
Sure. So before the process even begins, there's the prospecting part of it where we're trying to find these people. And I've heard a lot of different ways that a lot of different people have had success with that. So I don't think there's any one single way. With me, it begins with a lot of research. Phoenix is a city of 5 million people if you count it all. And so I've always operated with a heightened sense of awareness. When we're driving around, you'll see different projects being built, and I'll see the different builders that are being involved in those construction projects. When you're on the road, you see different vehicles, and if they have a phone number and a website, then that's something to research. And so early on, as I was building a list, a lot of time went into just building that list based on if they're building something now, they're obviously busy, they're obviously viable. And then finding a way to get in there, I could spend a whole lot of time on that. I won't unless you have specific questions on that. But trying to find out who might know somebody over there. I'm a member of a number of different associations.
Yeah.
Early on, the restaurant association, because I like the restaurants, especially on the work comp side. Construction, we do a lot of that as an agency, different contractors, the subcontractors and the GCs. And then over time, years in, started getting better about asking for referrals, because we all know how well those work. They're not always easy to ask for, but there's that prospecting side of building the database and studying and learning what you can about those prospects, so that when you finally do get in the door, you have something to talk about.
For sure. Totally.
And then there's the whole process of what I do from there. And so you just asked me which way you want to go with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let's talk. Yeah, I mean, you're doing your research. You get a lead. Let's say that you get the opportunity to engage with that client, have a first meeting, or take the first step. What does that start to that process look like, all the way through to when you're asking for the business?
So the first, when I first get a first meeting, and there's very few anymore where there's not some sort of prior knowledge or some other person that we can talk about, like the person who introduced us, for example, and normally that comes with a high level of trust because it's somebody that has said, well, Andrew's already helped us do this. And so I'm trying to go back in my brain to the non-referred leads and really starting straight from an insurance perspective of how can I help you? And not necessarily asking that question, but knowing that when you're in front of somebody for the first time, the only way that they're going to hire you and replace the person that they're working with, if there's they're not your cousin, they're not your uncle, they're not your brother, but just they're truly thinking about replacing their current agent that they obviously have some sort of relationship with.
You would think so.
Right, in most cases. With this new guy that they don't know, that person being me, is to bring something to them that is different, whether it's just the narrative or whether it's a result that you can show. I've got a book full of different results that I bring because I think that's really effective to be able to show, here's what I've already done for these other companies. And it really takes, I think, a high level of awareness and a great degree of listening. And I'm a talker, and so I have to really pay attention to this. When I
no
listen,
way. Not you.
I can listen, but it takes a lot of effort. And so when I focus on listening, I'm decent at listening when I really, really focus on it. And hearing what they have to say, because it's so common that we miss what their real issue is because we're listening to what we think they're saying. Price is too high. Well, price is too high for everybody. The price would be too high until it's free. But a different level of listening is going to unearth some things. And that's why I really like the workers' compensation angle, is because the one line of coverage that nobody's ever going to be happy with ever. Like 100% of the time they're upset with it. If they don't have any claims, you're right. They have to have it. And if you talk with a business that hasn't had a single workers' compensation claim in 3 or 4 years or ever, they believe that it should be free and that every dollar that they spend on it is a waste of money because they don't have claims. I say that with air quotes because we all talk to that client that says they don't have claims until you get their loss runs. And if they do have claims and their EMOD's really high, then they completely dislike workers' compensation because they're paying a lot of money for it. So you're never going to find a happy person with their work comp. You'll find a lot of people that say, well, here's our general liability, and I get it because we've got a lot of guys, hanging off the sides of buildings. Or they'll say, this is our automobile premium, it's $100,000, and I get it because we've got a lot of cars. But you'll never hear anybody who's happy about their workers' compensation. So it's a great place to start. And so that's what I really listen for is there any pain in that area? And then being able to show them, well, here's how I've been able to help people in that area, specifically the experience mod score, because there is so much that you can control with that. Whether they have injuries or not, there's a lot that you can do with that. And being able to deliver that message, look, you can keep on having injuries if you want to. I'm not pretending to be a safety guy. But what I am saying is that there are ways to legally manipulate, and I emphasize legally, there are ways to legally manipulate the experience mod score if you know how it works. And people are interested in that. They'll at least
seems like
say,
that might be just a small component that's key, is the legally side, right?
Sure. Well, we've earned a reputation as a business. There's a reason there's a lot of jokes that start off with, what happened with an attorney and an insurance agent that, walked into a bar. And so we want to make sure that we rise above that. And so when I tell people that they can manipulate their EMOD score, it doesn't sound right. And if it's legal, then why not emphasize that?
Well, it's very similar to what happens in the tax world, right? Nobody likes paying more taxes than they want to. And so we figure out a lot of fancy ways to legally figure out how to reduce your tax burden.
Sure. That's a great analogy. And who wouldn't want that? So if you're a business owner and you're talking to a CPA, and the CPA says, I'm looking at your data here, and for the last 6 or 7 years, you've overpaid simply because you haven't taken advantage of a loophole that's there and it's legal, I'm going to want to continue that conversation with that CPA and say, well, what is it? What's my other guy missing? I'm also going to be angry. And that CPA is probably going to get hired if he can prove it to me that something has been missing, that there's been some sort of tax advantage that I haven't taken advantage of simply because my current guy didn't know. That's exactly what this is.
Totally.
So continue to walk down that discovery path a little bit, Andrew. You know, you're sitting down with the prospect on the other side of the table with them, and you're actively listening for potential problems that you're hearing underneath their surface talk. Like, keep going from that standpoint, like in your sales process.
After there's some trust that's been built and you've got somebody who's comfortable sharing with you, and that's just a whole different topic, right, on just how to relate to people as a human. You could get into that if you wanted to. There's books on it. There's psychology. We all know how to do that, at least to some degree, or we wouldn't still be in this career. But after you've developed that surface level or that level beyond that of trust, and people are going to open up about, well, like I'll say something like, okay, because there's always that person where you have to say, okay, it sounds like you just don't have any problems at all. It sounds like everything's perfect. Well, that's the first time they're going to say to you, well, I wouldn't say that. And then they just go on a laundry list of things that are wrong. So after they get done doing that, I will usually say one of two things, and sometimes both. I'll say, number one, it doesn't have to be this way. And the other thing that I'll say is there is a solution. Like all these things that you're talking about that you're not happy about, you need to know there is a solution. Have you given up on the idea that there is one? Because I'm hearing what you're saying, and it's a legitimate concern. And I'm just here to let you know that whether you hire me or not, there is a solution to every one of these problems that you've mentioned. I'd love to tell you what it is, but I don't know if we're really there yet. 9 times out of 10, or it might be 10 out of 10. I don't know if anybody's ever said to me, okay, that's good, there's a solution, but I don't really want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no,
so we're warming up to each other, and they'll say, okay, you think there's a solution, because my other guy told me that a 1.25 EMOD is not that bad, because we're an electrician. Well, he just gave me a lot of information by saying that, because now I can say, well, actually, every industry, whether it's high-rise window washing or whether it's a library, the average EMOD score within that industry is always going to be a 1.0. That's why the NCCI changes the rates every single year, is to make sure that the average is always going to be 1.0 within every industry. It's the only reason they change the rates every year, is to make it 1.0. So no matter what your industry is, there is no industry where you can say, well, we're a 1.25 and that's not so bad for XYZ industry. No, that is bad. Well, a lot of times they say, we didn't know that. So what you just said. So now we're already kind of in the education part. And so and that's part of the active listening, is there's so many times that they're going to answer. There's so many times that people are going to explain their ignorance on a topic. I didn't just call anybody ignorant, but they're going to explain their ignorance on a topic by what they say. Like, I'm ignorant on a lot of topics. I just don't know a lot of things about a lot of things. It doesn't mean I'm an ignorant person, but if you want to teach me how to fix the transmission of a car, everything that you tell me is going to be brand new. So I'm ignorant in that area. And maybe ignorance not even the best word. I'll find another word for it. I don't know about that. And so, yes, and a lot of business owners are very, very, very good at what they do, and insurance is not the part that they have decided to study or specialize in. And so without making them feel like they're unintelligent, I explain, look, this is what I do every day. I wouldn't expect you to understand all these different exclusions and endorsements and provisions, and we don't have to act like somebody should know what the indemnification provisions are in a general liability policy, because that's not what they do every day. And so that's kind of my approach, is really gentle. Like, you don't know everything about this, and that's totally fine. That's why I do this. And I don't know everything about what you do for a living. But when it comes to the insurance part, here's some things that I'm seeing that will really, really help, that I can help you with, and I know how to do this, and we know how to do this. And then you have to get from there into the whole, I know we're going to talk about it, which is when they say, well, okay, well, that's good. Look, can you go get me some numbers? But that's kind of, I'm trying the best I can to walk through that typical scenario with that person where you don't have the cousin, the uncle, the brother, where you don't have that. You have a business owner who's really looking for a business reason to hire a new guy, which means he's got to get rid of his old guy. Because that's a tall ask.
Yeah. Which I think everybody's got to frame it in that mindset, or they have to be in that mindset that's listening to this, that when you ask somebody to do business with you, you are asking them to fire somebody else, period. And if we don't acknowledge that, that can be a roadblock to even winning a piece of business sometimes that should be a slam dunk, but we didn't prep that client for firing that other person.
It's also can be problematic to assume that somebody close to you is just going to simply walk through your process and say, okay, let's rock and roll. Like, to assume that you don't need to actively listen and find problems and take them through your normal process to make them a good client, like, you could be mistaken.
Absolutely. And I've got examples of that right now. I mean, I've got a great friend, and he's very high up in a company locally here in Phoenix, and it just doesn't make sense for us to work together, and it just never has. There's a lot of reasons for it, and there's some other people involved, but yeah, relying on that alone, it's going to get you some. But if you're looking to build a long-term career and you think that's going to be possible on relationships alone, I just don't know of any people who've been able to do that. They're probably out there. I just don't know any who've been able to build a whole career on golf course.
Well, I think the relationship is important, but to this point, it's not or to your point, it's not necessarily how you're going to get all of your opportunities and or solely rely on relationship to keep those opportunities. But it's a big piece. You have to have a great relationship with your clients. You have to know and understand their business very well, which takes a deep relationship. But that, isn't necessarily what you should rely on to go and get your opportunities.
Yes, and I'll tell you something that I just thought about the other day when I was looking through my book of business, and this is just a reality, and I like that it's turned out this way, is that I've got a lot of clients that have become friends. I've been to their house, or they've been to mine, or we've gone somewhere, and I didn't know them at all before we had a business relationship, and they've turned into friends.
Yeah.
Then I have friends who have turned into clients.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is the number of people who I didn't have a friendship with that started with business and have become friends far outnumber people that I knew all along who have since become clients.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah,
Usually,
I think it's
imagine the case.
That aligns with my list as well.
Yeah, and that's good. And what that means is that not only are you a friendly person, what that means is that there's knowledge and there's insurance reasons to hire you. And I'd always rather be hired on insurance reasons and then get to know the person on a personal level down the road than to rely on being hired because they think I'm a nice person, or I made them laugh, or we went and played golf. And I make fun of golf because I play golf, so it's like it's easy.
Yeah, totally. Well,
that's another reason. Another reason to have a stellar sales process, because that's what you're relying on. Like, what we just did there is framed how you're going to build lifelong good friendships is to have a damn good sales process and solve some of their most intimate problems. And if you can do that, then there's a lot more value that could come out of it.
Yes, exactly. And so much of that just has to do with really, 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 and I know this is an overused term, but really becoming a student of the industry. Because when you really drill down and you know a topic very well, and in this office we've got a few different people that have really drilled into topics like workers' compensation, you guys know, and that's something that I've really, really drilled into. And I can speak about it no matter where the conversation goes with a lot of confidence because I just feel like I've studied it to that degree. And we've got somebody else in this office that really, really, really has studied and gone 10 layers deep on captive insurance programs, and he knows it so well that whether you bring up the tax implications of having some offshore account in the Bahamas, whatever it is, he's going to know what that is. And so it's that specialization, which I know we talk about all the time. And notice, I'm not talking about specialization in an industry. I'm talking about specialization in a line of coverage or in a method of insuring or financing risk, which is the captive. And so when you become that student of the industry and you can speak confidently about a topic, I think it puts you at so much more ease when you're in front of that prospect. You just demonstrate that level of expertise and therefore calmness. And that by itself will gain you a lot of trust from that. We're still talking about the prospect that doesn't know us, right? And so we got to find a way to get that trust so we can even move to the next step, which is, okay, here's all my stuff. Let's go see what you can do. And so I think that it's such an easy thing for us to tell the new hires, like dive in and become an absolute student of the industry. But it's true. We say it all the time because it's true. And if you're a generalist with just a little bit of surface level understanding on a million different topics, I think it's really hard to go into any situation with a tremendous amount of confidence. I'll say one more thing on that topic. In this town, we have it's kind of funny, we have a lot of retired NFL quarterbacks who become insurance agents. And I don't know if they're everywhere or if they're just in Arizona, but we've had a lot of really bad quarterbacks in this town. And so they now
become insurance agents.
They get fired and then they become insurance agent. And we're competing against these guys all the time. And I'd say the names, I don't want to make fun of them, and I don't know who's going to listen to this, but you know who they are. and competing against them, you think on the front end, okay, I can't talk about that night that we lost at Lambeau Field or that night that we won at Three Rivers Stadium, that pass that everybody remembers, like that one good play. I can't talk about that. Like, I don't have that. And now I'm competing against this guy who got in with that. And so now the knowledge becomes very important, because at a certain point, a business owner is going to say, okay, it's cool that I have a third string backup injured quarterback as my agent, but like Andrew can actually fix our EMOD score, and what's going to be better for this business in 10 years.
That's hilarious.
We've got a bunch of them.
Yeah, you wouldn't have thought that'd be your competitive advantage at your competition's competitive advantage, right?
Right. Yeah. NBA too.
Oh, there you go.
They're all over here.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry, Elliot. You've mentioned this a couple times, Andrew. I just want to get your high-level thoughts. We don't need to spend too much time on this, but you've differentiated between having a niche in an industry versus a niche with, lines of coverage. I think is the way that you said it. Like, is that something that you guys have cognizantly kind of leaned into and like debunked the industry niche type of thing and said, hey, we want to focus a niche in these different categories for a certain reason? Or just give us the high level thought process on that real quick.
Sure. The overall thought process on that was not, it was not necessarily intentional, and it was, it's not what anybody set out to do, but because of this sheet behind me, this is an EMOD worksheet, and from where you're sitting, you probably can't see the name of the company on the top, and it doesn't matter because all of those look exactly the same for every single industry out there. And so as I started really finding success with the Experience Mod and the Experience Mod seminars and the people who really have an issue with the EMOD, what I started to realize was that in these seminars, it wasn't all contractors. There was a restaurant owner. There was a guy who owns a drug rehabilitation center, contractor, GCs, subs, a chain of hair salons. And as we're diving through the Experience Mod worksheet, everybody in the room could relate to it. Mm-hmm. And so I started to realize, this was 2010, 2011, and I started to realize this is interesting because it doesn't really matter what these different injuries are that we're talking about, because on that worksheet, they're all just codes. They're injury codes.
Yeah.
And there's a dollar amount next to each one. So that was inadvertent. And that wasn't planned, but I think what that has helped lead to is, okay, because take again, captives, a different topic. is there's all kinds of different captives. There's heterogeneous, there's homogeneous, there's different captive for any type of industry. But the guy in our office who really, really, really knows captives, it doesn't matter what industry they're in, because that method of financing risk, that method of the A fund, the B fund, the reinsurance layer, and all the different intricate details that go into a captive, those function primarily the same regardless of the industry. And so the key then becomes to be able to explain that in a way, the A fund, the B fund, the shared layers, the reinsurance, to be able to explain that in a way that the buyer is saying, okay, this is definitely a different way to finance risk. And then the industry doesn't become all that important. So that's a great question. I don't think that we set out to do that, but I think what we've seen over time is that if you can really drill down into a level of expertise on a particular line of coverage, and I don't really know where that would exist, where that would exist in property, for example. Cyber, you could go do this all day. I'm thinking about really, I did a presentation on cyber with the Arizona Builders Alliance a couple months ago, and I started to realize, cyber policy is like work comp. It's going to look very similar, because it doesn't matter what the company does. It just matters how many computers they have and people. There's a couple other things, but it doesn't matter the industry they're in. They're all going to get hacked.
Yep.
So cyber would be a great example. And you guys came up with that great, I loved that, the term, hacktivism.
Oh.
Hacktivism.
I'm not even sure we created it, but
well, I read that on one of your pieces, and so like that article that you produced, that you and your agency produced on hacktivism, that would be applicable to any business owner that owns any type of industry, and so you could dive so deep on that with anybody in Nebraska, because they're all dealing with it. And so work comp, I think that answers the question. It was not intentional. It's not something that we've taught, but I think over time we've all seen, wow, this is working.
Yeah. I think you're onto something. You're the first one that I've talked to that has looked at it from that light and not an industry niche. And I think it's very interesting.
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
Well,
different way to look at it. Well,
I'm sorry.
That's what I love about the cyber
part.
Yeah.
I was just going to say on the cyber part, like I'm as I just said that I'm searching through my brain trying to find a business or government or a municipality that's not going to be affected by cyber, or that hasn't been already, and I can't think of any. So that line of coverage. Now I know that's not really like a high dollar line of coverage, although it's getting that way.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, but that line of coverage right there, that's a topic that is applicable. You could have a room full of 100 different industries and give the same presentation, and every business owner in there would understand it because it's a line of coverage.
The exposure is not diminishing.
No, I wouldn't be surprised I really wouldn't be surprised if cyber policies are as expensive as general liability policies in 10 years. It just wouldn't.
Not even. It won't even take that long. I bet.
Maybe 5. Yeah.
Yeah. The rate at which it's increasing is pretty staggering.
Yeah.
For sure. So I think we've touched on this quite a bit in the conversation already, but maybe just to put a pin in it. So how would you articulate your sales process, allowing you to actually differentiate from the competition? Not necessarily all the seminar stuff you do, but that discovery-based process you're talking about. How does that allow you to differentiate from some of the people you've mentioned, or, how does it allow you to win the business?
So you're talking not prospecting, but the sales process.
Once you've got the prospect in, you're actually going through the discovery process. How does it allow you to differentiate?
It depends so much on the person that's across the table from me, because we all, in this industry, it's one of the things I think that makes it really fun is that to a degree we have to be psychologists. I mean, to a degree. How many times have you walked out of a meeting? I was just talking with a fellow producer down the hallway yesterday about this, like how much we have to act. And we all think right now of somebody that we sit down with who's never happy no matter what. And then we all also have somebody who is generally going to be happy no matter what. And sometimes those meetings will be back to back, whether it's a prospect meeting or a current client. And just the way that your demeanor has to change. This isn't even really insurance related,
Yeah.
This is more psychology related. And I don't think you can overlook that. I think I talk to so many producers and they, well, what did you tell them that was the thing, the zinger?
Yeah.
And it's,
no magic bullet.
It's like, no, it's not always that. It's this degree of relatability. It's this communication style that I think we all have to study just as much as we have to study general liability policies that instills that degree of trust. And I know that this is an ambiguous answer that's not specific, but there's not a cookie cutter answer because the conversation that I'm going to have with each individual person is going to be so different that it's hard to summarize it. But it's if I did have to summarize it, I would just say I've got my antenna up listening for them to say things that are not going well or that they wish were different. And then I'm thinking as they're talking through that, is there an honest and truthful thing that I have or that we have that's an honest and truthful solution to this? Because we can all go in there and say, well, our service is just great, and we answer the phone on the second ring, and we'll get you a COI.
You can say you've got the solution, but do you honestly have it? Yeah.
Right, but do we really have something? I'm hearing what this guy says, and do we truly have something that's worked before already in a situation like this? And so, and then that moves into, okay, well, here's how insurance. I think I'm going to answer your question better by saying this. There's always a point in the meeting where I can say, well, here's how the underbelly and the sometimes ugly underbelly of this industry works. Because a lot of people don't know this. You say, and I know not everybody's going to be able to watch this, but there's a current client who's having a really hard time understanding this. I'm going to cover up the name. I put their name on the vehicle and I said, this is you. This is you right here. You're the client. And this is me. And these are all the different carriers. And so whether you have me plus another me plus another me plus another me, it's not going to change the fact that for a moving company, there's still this number of carriers. And so the decision that you're trying to make here is, who's this person in the middle that you rely on for all the knowledge and when you're getting sued, who's going to help you through the litigation and make strategic decisions? Who's this person going to be that's going to go out to all these guys and bring you a price? Because this owner keeps talking about, well, maybe I should get other quotes. And I said, well, go ahead and do that. But they're still going to come from this batch of 12 carriers.
Yeah.
Because in the moving industry, there's really only like 5. But I'll say 12 because 7 of them are going to be twice the price and 5 of them are going to be close. And so we get into that conversation in that meeting. This is part of the process of moving the sale along, is that we have to talk about how this industry works. Now, we do work with a lot of contractors, and they say, well, we always bid our jobs, and so I want you to bid yours. And I say, I understand that, but let me offer something in return for that. What if, let's just say Omaha, Nebraska. Let's say that there's one company, a supplier in Omaha, Nebraska, that sells framing products. And everybody knows that it's cheapest there. Framing is a commodity. And so there's an owner of what's going to be a brand new shopping mall or an apartment complex, since we're talking framing, in Omaha. And the owner of the apartment complex says, okay, to the 3 different general contractors, one of you guys is going to win this job. Now, contractor A, you can go to any supplier you want. Contractor B, you're not allowed to go to discount framing. And contractor C, you're not allowed to go to discount framing. Well, if contractor B and C are smart, they'll say, well, we're not even going to submit a bid. We've already lost.
Yeah.
Because if contractor A gets to go to the one place in town that's got the best materials at the best price, and we're not even allowed to go there, then what we're going to deliver for you is already going to be twice the price. So we don't even want to play.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll say, look, if you want me to bid and quote, which I don't do anymore, and they ask why don't you do that? That's what we have to do. I say, well, it's different because in our industry, it'd be like you're asking me to come and you're gonna decide your broker on who's going to win a horse race, and you're going to give broker A whatever horse he wants and broker B whatever horse he wants, and I'm going to be broker C, and I get like the horse that's got 3 legs. and one of them is broken. I'm not even going to start that race. I'm just going to bow out. Like, there's no point for me to even try, because no matter how hard I hit that horse, no matter how hard I kick him and yell at him and scream out motivational phrases, he's going to lose. And so what you need to do is you need to pick your jockey who rides the horses the best, and pick the best jockey and then match him up with the best horse, and then you're going to have what you need. So we have to, and there's so many different ways to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to talk about, here's how this industry works versus how so many buyers of insurance think it works, because there is a better way to buy it. Or I'll even, to take that analogy one step further, I'll say you run the risk of hiring the worst jockey, but putting that jockey on the best horse, and that's not going to work either.
Yeah.
Right. So
he isn't going to know how to ride him.
Travelers might be the best carrier for your business, and you're going to flip this coin and it's going to land on the other guy who's an intern at that agency down the street who just started last week, and he's going to get Travelers, and I'm the guy who's been in this business for a long time. I understand your business, and I'm going to get this E&S market. Well, he's going to win. I mean, in every category of winning, no matter whether that be price or whether that be coverage or whether that be a lack of exclusions, the other guy's going to win. And that's going to make me look like I don't know what I'm doing. And then in your head, I'm going to be that high-priced guy. And I'd rather be the guy that doesn't give you a price at all, so you'll think about me next year, than to be the guy that you call a year from now saying, hey, Ryan, I really liked you last year. I wanted to hire you, but you're kind of you're the expensive guy. And so I'd say I'd just rather not have any price at all than to bring you an overpriced thing, or let's say it's a great price, but it's got horrible coverage. Like, I don't want to be that person. I'd rather just not bring you anything. That's when they know I'm serious. But I do have a lot of other agents say, well, certainly in some situations you bid and quote. I say, no, it's number one, it's exhausting. And number two, it doesn't work well for him or her, the business owner. Forget about me.
Yeah.
This isn't good for them. And so, like in this situation right here, I had to talk to this guy and say, this is not good for you. Because once these different carriers receive 3 different submissions from 3 different agents who are all trying to be first, these carriers aren't even going to take you seriously.
Yep.
So
I think that's a key to it. Go
That's
ahead.
a big one.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not. It's not that I don't like it. I'm certainly not mad at you. It's just I'm not going to get in the bid and quote game, because I run the risk reputationally of bringing you the wrong carrier that's either going to have horrible coverage, and I won't even recommend it, or it's going to be overpriced. And then I look at the business owner, I say, and then in your mind, there's going to be a neurological association with me as a high-priced guy. And I'm in this for the long term. So you might call me in a year or 2 or 3, and I don't want that conversation to start with, hey, I really wanted to hire you 3 years ago, but you were priced too high. Have you gotten any better at that? I'd rather you call me back and say, we should have gone with you last year, and you never brought a quote because you hold your head high and you know that you're going to do a good job. So it's tricky, but I truly don't do that.
Did you fix your 3-legged horse yet?
Well, see that I bring that one up because it actually worked. I'll tell you one more. There's a guy, a business owner, and he's a big time golfer. He loves playing golf, and his other agent, I'm his agent now, but his other agent also plays golf, and I play golf. And I said, look, the way it's like literally what you're trying to do here is you're going to hire either me or Bill based on who wins this round of golf. And I'm very confident that I can beat Bill. I played golf in college on a scholarship. I know Bill's not that good. I'll beat him. And right at the last minute before we tee off, you handed me a set of left-handed golf clubs, and you say, okay, go beat him. I'm not going to have a chance with left-handed golf clubs. I'll beat him all day long with my clubs, but if you give me left-handed clubs, and he's kind of like trying to figure out where I'm going with it, and I said, if I'm left over with the leftover markets, it's like me trying to beat your average guy when he gets all the good markets. So I'm not going to tee off. There's no sense in me even teeing off because I don't know how to play golf left-handed. Yeah, and I don't know how to do insurance. And I said, I don't know how to do insurance with bad carriers. And so I have to take it away from insurance. We're still talking about prospect. We're still talking about the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so I may as well talk about these examples because I've really used these, and it's trying to get somebody to see how our business works using something other than insurance. And so I mentioned a three-legged horse is not going to win the Kentucky Derby. It never has. It never will. I'm never going to beat anybody in golf playing left-handed, but I can beat pretty much any insurance agent playing golf with my clubs, and that's like me having my carrier. I need my carrier. I need the right carrier to be able to win this game. And so if you give me the wrong carrier against a substandard agent who gets the correct carrier, I'm going to lose, and then you're going to have this neurological connection with me being a loser, and then you're not going to call me next year.
Totally.
Now, by this point in time, this conversation I'm having with you guys, you have to imagine this with a business owner. By this point in time, somebody has laughed, and we're already friends.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so that's how it happens. I'm trying to sum it up because it's going to be different with everybody, but that's how it happens. You guys would hire me right now. I can tell you'd hire me if I used that example.
You had me at hello, Andrew.
I think our work comp renewal's coming up for our agency. Actually, I might have to give you a call.
We've got some great carriers for insurance agents.
That's awesome. So
that's been effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess just to kind of put a bow on it, wrap this up. When you're thinking about that process you go through, and even take it all the way prospecting through everything we've just talked about, what level of your success would you attribute to having that sales process that we've just discussed?
Well, some iteration of that conversation that we just had has happened in every successful sale. It's happened in a couple of unsuccessful sales too. I'm going to answer your question, but I have to answer it two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll make sense when I answer it both ways. So I'm trying to sum this up because I want to say it's 100% successful, but it's not. Here's what I mean when I say it's 100% successful. By the time I send the information with the help of our wonderful staff internally, when we send the information out to the carrier, it's 100% at that time. Well, that's easy because there's no other competition on it. So of course it's 100% because we're going to all the carrier markets. Answer number two is, how many times is that successful getting somebody to hire you after you've had that conversation? Not to bid and quote for you, but to hire you. And I know I should have numbers on this. I don't. I would say probably 70% of the time, and here's why that's so high, is because there's also been some vetting going on before even that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
To see if it's a viable person to sit down and even have this conversation with. Because a lot of that can happen. If somebody tells me over email or over the phone, the only way we do this is bidding and quoting, it's the way that we've always done it, then that meeting that I just kind of went through, that never even happens.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
So that's why the numbers seem really high. It's not because I'm bloviating. It's because there's places for them to get off the off-ramp before we get to that part.
Yeah. Which is what you want to allow. I mean, you want to disqualify them as soon as possible if they're not the right fit, right?
That's right. Yeah. And now, if it's somebody who referred me into somebody, then I always, when I sit down with that person, I say, now, I appreciate that Billy introduced us. Did Billy tell you because I insure Billy's company, did he tell you anything about when we went through this 3 or 4 years ago and how I don't bid and quote? I like to get hired based on qualifications. Did he tell you that? And sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't. And if they didn't, I say, well, okay, that's okay. I'm not mad at Billy for not sharing that. But here's kind of how this business works for a lot of amateurs. They cut and they copy, they paste and they pray. They'll flip coins, play pin the tail on the broker. It's a game of chance, and I don't do that. And it doesn't mean that we can't get along. It just means I have a lot more respect for the industry than to play it like it's a game of chance. And so all the clients have hired me, and I always have with me, and here's my whole book of business and all the results, they've hired me based on my qualifications. And it's just a smarter way to do it. It's not about me. It's about, this is better for you. And so if we want to engage with those parameters, and if we want to engage with that upfront contract, that's how we'll go about it. And if not, then we'll leave as friends. And We'll tell Billy everything's okay. And so think about it. That's how attorneys do it. You're never going to go into an attorney. Have you ever heard of anybody who went into a law firm and he said, I'm thinking about filing a lawsuit against somebody who did me wrong, or I've got a really complicated divorce coming up, or I've got a business conflict and I need to get some quotes from some different attorneys, like what's your hourly wage, and I'm looking for a cheap guy. It's never happened. So why would we allow that?
No.
Well, it's a lot of what we talk about on the show, is just that. Like, our industry a lot of times doesn't view ourselves as a trusted advisor, as a professional with that client. It's as a salesperson or a broker or
Right.
whatever. And got to shift that perspective, which is what we have conversations with guys like you a lot doing that.
And it takes a while. Can we all agree on that? It takes a while. Because this all sounds easy and, I'm going to go start doing that. But I would be lying if I said it took the 5 years of some bidding and quoting, and then another few years of, okay, this is really working, getting hired based on qualifications. And then that moves into, if this is making so much sense and we're catching the really good fish with this kind of bait, then why wouldn't we use this bait only?
Yep. 100% agree.
And so it
awesome,
does take
dude.
time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we could go on for hours. And I'd love to, but hopefully we can do it again sometime soon, because I think, you're doing a lot of awesome stuff. I think people can take a ton of stuff away from, and you're always willing to share, which I love. And, you have that abundance mindset that we talk about all the time, where, the rising tide raises all ships, right? So appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and we'll do it again.
You guys are great to talk
much.
Anytime. Love talking with you guys.
Awesome, man.
Have a great rest of your week.
See ya.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to Getting Past the Premium. We are excited to continue breaking down barriers and finding solutions together. If you would like to reach out regarding anything you heard in today's episode, find links and contact info in the description. Until next time, have a great day, and let's continue getting past the premium.